Something very interesting is happening with regards to respect and trust in the old media establishment, news reporting and television reporting. You can see that in the United States presidential race, which is just starting to heat up. You've got two candidates likely to be the final candidates, Sanders and Trump, who were shocked and reviled by mainstream media. And this is something new entirely. So what's going on here? I'm Rick Falfinger, and this is Liberty Talk 49. As we're approaching the Iowa caucuses and Super Tuesday beyond that, you can observe that a not entirely unlikely outcome is that we'll have a final showdown between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump in the United States presidential race. This was completely inconceivable to the entire camp of mainstream media, who have been portraying Donald Trump as, and here's this election's complete clown. Look at how funny he is and laugh at him because he has completely entertainment value and no other value at all. Whereas Bernie Sanders has been completely stonewalled on the Democratic side to benefit Hillary Clinton. Now it shows that for the next generation, Bernie Sanders is basically just knocking it out of the park in terms of support. So something very interesting is happening here with regards to trust in mainstream media, with regards to how mainstream media used to run the show entirely and has now lost the power of narrative. Something interesting is happening in regards to trust, in regards to, in particular, their power to tell us what we think, what we know, what we feel, and how we should react to what we see around us. To comment on this, we have Sara Goldberger, who's been working with PR and media for a long time, even working in the heart of darkness in the European Parliament with PR and media, imagine that. And I'm happy to say, came out unscathed. So, Sara, can you elaborate on what are we seeing here? I mean, are newspapers and television losing their influence? And if so, what does that mean for future political campaigns and news reporting in general?
Well, hello. Yes, I would definitely say that they are losing their influence, but it's a loss that they have brought upon themselves simply by mixing news and views in a way that I think we as viewers, consumers, find a little bit disconcerting. It used to be, if we take a paper, there used to be the first pages where it was op-eds and editorials, and there we knew that the views were coming. And we knew which views we were going to see because the paper clearly said that in this paper, this is the political strand that we follow. This is the political party that we adhere to. And then you turn the paper around and you switch and you open up in another page, there you have news. Suddenly we see papers, or old media in particular, we see that they have this division of news and views is suddenly no longer there. So they are suddenly becoming megaphones for something that I don't really know that I want the bigger newspapers to be megaphones for. I would still like to go to one place where I could get the news in a way that I believe is relatively neutral, that they only report to the reality as it was seen. We realized always that that was never really the case, but more or less that, if event A happened, we were certain that event A would get a credible description in the paper. No, we don't know that anymore. And so that is one thing that I definitely has happened, and I think that is not a good thing. Then we also have suddenly the internet has grown up thanks to better infrastructure, thanks to better widespread use. The internet has grown up in a way that the past 10 years that has made it possible to enter into a public relation. Really, if you use that word, just see what it says public relations. It means that you have a relation with a public or multiple public in a way that it was never, ever, or very difficult before. And take yourself, you have started a TV program, a TV show. Just 2-3 years ago, it would have been not impossible, but a lot more difficult or a lot more expensive than it has been for you now. So it has opened up for journalism in a way that we didn't have before. Personally, I think it is excellent. The difficult part is how do we check the validity of the news? And that's something that we will have to become better at as consumers.
Right,
If you then take,
go ahead.
If you then take the two parties, the two candidates that you were talking about, Bernie Sanders and Trump, I think traditional media have shot themselves in the foot there. Because not only has it turned out that Trump and Sanders are extremely media savvy when it comes to so-called new media, but the discourse that has taken on from the traditional media has been, when it comes to Trump, as to say, hey, this is the clown, he's a stupid person, everyone who votes for him or will vote for him are equally stupid. Well, quite frankly, I think that just builds his support because no one wants to be called stupid.
Right.
And what is extremely interesting when it comes to Trump is that he has, at the same time, he has managed to reach an audience that is disenfranchised from the U.S. society the way we know it. And I find it highly interesting. I don't really know how he has done it, but he has done it so well. And part of it, I think, is because that he doesn't treat these people, or the people, future voters, as stupid. He very often says the things that no one else says. I think maybe people are starting to get a little bit embarrassed that they actually think that, but I don't think that will stop him in the long run, or it's going to take longer to stop him that way than anyone thinks.
Right.
When it comes to Bernie Sanders, his audiences have been told, oh yeah, he's cute, but he's unrealistic. No one wants to be told that either. So I think if, they had been just treated as any other candidate, the race would have been completely different.
Yeah, but isn't this rather typical? I mean, what's interesting here is the way you bring up disenfranchisement and how people have been feeling, well, deliberately left out, deliberately looked down on in the most condescending way possible by the establishment here. Yeah. And you can observe, like you say, two different ways that Sanders and Trump have dealt with this. Trump has basically extended both middle fingers to media cameras every chance he gets, saying the most outrageous things and playing them like a harp, knowing exactly the reactions he'll elicit and get all the screen time he wants, with which, again, is exactly what gets the votes. Because there are a lot of people who feel disenfranchised, angry, frustrated, and frankly left out, not just in the United States, but worldwide, by this ivory tower establishment. And Sanders, on the other hand, has done the exact same thing, but in another manner entirely. He's also saying things you weren't allowed to say in the Overton window of allowed opinions in the United States media climate. Only he's circumvented the cameras instead of provoking them, and has achieved pretty much the same result in terms of support. So, go ahead.
But we also have are two persons that are inherently competent. I mean, Donald Trump has created a multi-billion real estate company, global company. You just don't do that if you are a complete moron. I mean, there are limits to who you make business with. There are that. Bernie Sanders, he has kept a low profile, but he has been around in the U.S. politics for how many years? 30, 40? I mean, they are not, either of them have been, airlifted into the position they are. They have worked hard to get there. I might not agree what they're saying. The fact is that they are there and they have to be treated. And I think that if they had been called on their positions, and if they had been allowed to debate them in a way that everyone else has been allowed to debate them, it would have happened. Things would have looked different. But inherently interesting is the fact that thanks to not, in a sense, using traditional media and going through citizen journalism or going through circumventing the traditional media, they have reached an audience that traditional media would die to reach. They don't know. They're struggling over themselves to reach this audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah? And this is why I think they are doing all these stupid things of turning magazines into megaphones for point of views, And we have an example. Unfortunately, it's a very delicate area, but we have an example in Sweden where a major newsnet, for a couple of weeks ago or even months ago, you couldn't open it. You couldn't go there to the website saying, hey, we need more refugees. That was it. And suddenly, from one day to another, we're going to stop it.
Yeah, the entire establishment flip-flopped overnight.
Yeah, people will notice. And I mean, in general, dish and price cycle, no. 90% of the population are not stupid. They will understand. We will understand, if what we are told is not up to scratch.
Right. It's a little bit like we have always been at war with Eurasia here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let me throw out a hypothesis. I think what I am kind of sensing that what builds credibility today is the feeling of being genuine, or the appearance of being genuine. I mean, I used to taunt reporters when they were setting up their cameras for TV interviews, and while I saw that cameras were not running yet, because a lot of studios are still using Betamax cameras because they actually have good broadcast quality, and so they would have the tape deck open and had not inserted the tape yet. So I could see the camera was not running. And while I did that, just to taunt them a little, I would say things like, well, I'm a politician. I have a very strong sense of ethics. If it's good for my career, it's ethical. And the better it is for my career, the more ethical it is. And you could see them getting all stressed up and wanting to start the interview and wanting to get the camera rolling, in case I'd say something like that on camera, which of course I never did. But I was making a point here. I was kind of making a pose-law point that I was caricaturing politicians in general.
Yeah.
If you're looking at, there's a common theme on the net right now, comparing Bernie Sanders' decisions to Hillary Clinton's decisions and observing when they took those decisions.
Yeah.
And you can observe that Sanders has had these positions since the early 1950s, as in minority rights, you name it, whereas Clinton took them just recently. And I think that kind of genuinity, rather than striving for power itself, and let's come back to that, striving for power itself, does pay off.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also sticking to your guns. But I also think that you are pointing to another point as well. So you're saying it's on the net. How difficult wouldn't it have been 10 years ago to find that and to get it out? Because I think it is it's a good comparison. I think it's a basic comparison. When did you start to think like this, or when did you come to this? Or fine, if Hillary Clinton can say, hey, this was my standpoint, I got more information, I changed. Fair enough, good to her. But I don't think that is the case. And I think that is also a sickness within politics today. And that is that, there is a poll and something happens and we must think like the poll says. And
right.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's inherently wrong. And I think that you might not agree with them. And I think, so Jeremy Corbyn, he takes and if he heard me saying what I'm going to say, he will probably jump out of his shoes because it's mine. But Jeremy Corbyn takes a page out of the book of Margaret Thatcher. She stuck to her guns. She didn't really care that much, or publicly, seemingly not really cared about really much about the polls. The ladies weren't for changing. She stuck to it. So yes, we didn't like the bedroom pact. We don't care. This is what we said we're going to do in the elections. We stick to it. Bernie Sanders has the same thing. You don't want minorities to have the same rights as we have. Well, I think they should, and I stick to it. And 50 years later, he still sticks to it.
Right, and Trump being more or less the opposite on that scale. Which also,
maybe
you weren't allowed to say.
We don't know, because has anyone looked at his point of view?
Well, to be honest, I think they change with what gets him screen exposure. As in, he's trying to up himself in every interview just to get more outrage, which again produces more screen time. But let's come back to this disenfranchisement and trust.
Yes, but then, is it his point of views that are changing, or is it his language?
Good point. It could also be the fact that he just knows how to play media, and he's using media to send a message that his supporters will understand is something different than what he's telling the cameras. Yeah. Which again is skillful playing.
He has to be careful now so he doesn't topple over.
Well, once you gain altitude, the higher they fly, the longer they fall, right?
Yeah.
But let's come back to this news versus views division. We've always had the idea that news reporting in itself is neutral, that there is this political side and then there's a strict neutral reporting. But first of all, was that ever true? And second, has this been exposed as a lie just recently? Has it accelerated in terms of differentiating yourself toward a fragmented market with different political views? Or is it just that it's become more apparent when citizen journalism has also come on the stage?
I think, first of all, it has always been the case. It has just never been. I think your last point here, it has never been as apparent. But it has always been the case. But I think in some sense, we have always known it as well, because we know that if we go to a paper or a media outlet that has a Tory point of view, we know that we're going to get the Tory version of the truth. If we go to a Labour point of view magazine, we know we're going to get the Labour version of the news. You know that. What has been, I think, lately has been more apparent than ever is that bastions of neutrality suddenly crumble. I mean, the BBC, for instance, that was the reference.
So it
everything.
stops even being remotely believable. That's your point.
Yes, yes. Or maybe more believable than others because they still have more resources than many have. But still, you can't find, citizen journalists showing something from a shaky camera taken on a mobile, showing that the truth is perhaps not the one that this bastion of truth, or whatever we want to call it, or whatever we want to call the old media. It might not be that what they're saying. And also,
go ahead.
as we have seen, take the New Year's Eve in Germany, that the news were there. They started on Twitter. It took 4 days before the national news in Germany actually acknowledged that something even had happened.
Right, in Cologne. You're talking about Cologne,
in Cologne, yeah.
Let's examine that a little bit more, because something similar happened in Sweden last August and the year before that in a festival here. And news media, the biggest newspapers in the country were tipped off to that from reliable sources and yet chose not to publish. And in what people are speculating was a political judgment call that this is not going to go over well, rather than reporting a newsworthy event. And what's really interesting here, when it comes to cost and barriers to entry in reporting, was that it was a guy from the suburbs who's running his own news website who exposed these behemoths as covering up, or at least choosing not to publish, what was actually a very interesting event for the public. So, as it turned out that similar events to Cologne had happened in Sweden, and newspapers had not published it, despite knowing. Once they were called out on this, first they blamed the police for not providing them with all information, as if newspapers' job isn't to find out on their own and not being served everything on a silver platter to begin with. And second, not even when neighboring countries' reporters' groups started reporting on this, did they back down and just fess up and say that, all right, we screwed up, we allowed our views to influence the news. That's still that's still not been admitted. And so their credibility was just torn down and is in free fall by this one guy. And the cost efficiency difference here is enormous. So why is this happening now?
I don't think I think it's happening now because it is possible. And I also think that we have come to a tipping point somewhere or another. But I don't think that has anything to do with media. I think that has to do with the polarization in our society that has come from I don't know where. There is black and white. It is right or wrong. There is no longer any gray scales, it's really difficult to have a public conversation. Even though I earlier said that finally public relations has become what public relations says in its title, it has also become inherently difficult because of the masses of information that's there. It has also become very, very difficult to have some kind of ongoing discussion. Apparently, for reasons I cannot still not figure out why you cannot say there are rapes happening. That's it. And I don't really mind, in a sense, people not saying that these men are from XYZ, because that is uninteresting for me. The interesting part is that women are being raped, and it should stop. End of story. And this is happening. And as a woman, I want to know. I want to have information to make a decision either to go there or not go there.
Right, and you didn't get that information because it was deemed politically sensitive.
Yes, and I don't know whether I should laugh or be outraged or something in between. Because who do they think they are, in a sense, to take this decision?
Exactly. And this is where we're coming back to disenfranchisement again, aren't we?
Yeah, and I would not consider myself particularly disenfranchised from the society. I would probably be one of the less disenfranchised, but I still get intensely angry with people taking decisions on my behalf that they don't have to take. And this is also something, that if we look at Trump and Bernie Sanders as two extremes on one side, if you are being told that if you vote for this person, you're stupid, well, I can bloody well make my own decisions.
Exactly.
So if I'm that stupid, well, then I'm just going to vote on him because SLDU.
So let me ask one question here that intrigues me. I mean, in 2005, 2006, 2007, blogs were all the rage. Everybody was starting their own WordPress site, and every single person had an outlet for their views and analysis that other people took part of. You had something called RSS with syndicated different blogs, and one person would follow somewhere between a dozen to a couple of hundred blogs and read what other people thought. Now, that flow has been replaced by Twitter and Facebook, who are instead specializing in reinforcing your bubble. I mean, Facebook's entire business model is showing you things you like. So it's showing you ideas you agree with, rather than challenging your view, rather than making sure that you once in a while get something that might just make you think a little.
So, but hasn't that always been the case? How often have you been challenged by a newspaper?
Newspapers, yes, but with blogs fading away and Facebook and Twitter taking its place, not to mention Instagram and photos of dinner plates, we've had the impression that the bubbles are reinforcing. So if the bubbles aren't reinforcing, why are we seeing this strengthening in diversity now?
Well, first of all, I think that if you go back to the blogs, just look at that again. When the blog started, that was about me and myself and me again. And then it started to be, okay, so there was this journalist and realized, hey, there is this tool I can use for this. And I think it's the same thing. You can look at, say, the Twitter flow, but you have a bigger choice. You can choose to be annoyed in your Twitter flow or in your Facebook page. It will take a click that you actually have to do it, but you can choose that. Or you can choose to only see cats. It's your choice. And I think there is really the actual point. You have a choice. You have a choice that maybe we didn't have 20 years ago. Or, well, 20 years, not maybe, we'd started already, but say 30 years ago, with the advent of the internet. We have a choice now. And I think the big idea is, the difficulty is to get onto people's mobile phone, to their pad. That's really the thing, to get into the eyes of people. Because it's so simple that just click away. But Twitter, for instance, there's 140 characters for now. It's going to get longer, we saw the other day. But there's still, how often isn't it that you just get, a link, 140 characters, read more and click. And you often click on that, whether you agree or not.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, you still have this flow rolling somewhere in the corner of your eye on a screen somewhere. It might not be your screen, but another screen in the office.
Yeah. So, I mean, you don't call it RSS any longer, but the flow is still there, it's still rolling, and you can still subscribe, and you can have lists. You're all manners of speaking, is that. So I just think it's going to be another form. The information in the blogs are still there. They just have another form,
Makes sense. So wrapping up, we've been talking about disenfranchisement. We've been talking about people revolting against somebody telling them what to think, what to feel.
Yeah.
And where people are starting to notice that things do not add up, and that it's becoming a 1984 style scenario where you essentially have a revisionist elite, revisionist of the contemporary truth, the history, and the future. And people are not buying it anymore, so they're looking for alternate sources, which may be just as revisionist, but you still have a lot of diversity. So, moving ahead, how will this affect the power of narrative, the power to tell a story? Will you have to be provocative? Will you have to be genuine? What does future PR and what does future reporting look like from your point of view?
Well, you know what? I'm not going to go there, because I also know, one thing I know is that you and me, we are atypical. If we step out of our bubbles, our point of views are probably extreme in so many ways that we don't understand or we don't know. So,
but isn't that true for everybody in their own context?
Yeah, I'm not going to try to see into the future. what I can see is what has already happened is that we have all this way of communication, and it's going to get two ways. When was it the last time, for instance, getting a Romania, but I tweet to the leading politicians in Sweden, and I sometimes get an answer from them. When did that last thing happen? And that's going to happen more, I think. Hopefully that's going to happen more. Something that I hope we will learn as consumers is to evaluate the source. And that's going to be inherently more difficult, whatever happens. And that's something for me from PR as well, that as a sender, your credibility is going to be key.
You're saying that we're moving from a media landscape where you had one television channel and everybody were spoon-fed the same message, whether it was true or not, to essentially a caveat emptor media landscape, buyer beware.
Yeah, that's long gone. One media, that's long gone. I mean, you can see the discussions about license fees, and however that is, you know that you're in the forefront of that discussion yourself. That's all gone. That's gone. What we're seeing now are I think it's on the last end. It's going to all change. The difficulty, as I see it, is going to be, it was simpler before because we had, as I said, there used to be a couple of beacons that we could assume had news and unprovoked, unprofiled news, and only to show us the world as it happens.
Right, whether that assumption was true or false.
Whether that assumption was true or false, that's what we could believe, or we could believe in. And that is going to be the springing point, I find. How are we going to have some kind of, where can I check the falsehood? How can I falsify something if I don't know the truth?
And I think let's close the discussion with that question, because it's definitely a question for the future. So thank you, Sara, for this commentary. Do you want to add something before we close for today?
Not here and now. I'm sure I'll think of something smart when we close.
All right. Thank you. It's been a great discussion.
Yes.
I'm Nick Falkvinia, and this is Liberty Talk 49. Do visit our sponsor, Private Internet Access. Good night.
This report is presented by Private Internet Access.
Produced using exclusively free software.